What's up, guys? Today I'd like to share with you my favorite rep scheme for building bigger, stronger, and more explosive muscle. I like to think that over the years I've probably tried it all. I've done sets of 100, I've performed nothing but singles for weeks on end, but no matter what I do, there's always one rep scheme I always come back to, and that's the 10x3. As far as I know, the 10x3 rep scheme was made popular by Chad Waterbury on the T Nation website in the early to mid 2000s. The idea behind it goes like this. If you normally do the typical 3 sets of 10 reps using roughly 70% of your 1 rep max, you can increase your total workload as well as the quality of that work by flipping the rep scheme in reverse and increasing the weight. Let me give you a quick example. If your 1 rep max is 100 pounds, you'd usually use 70% of that, or 70 pounds, for your sets of 10. Using the 10x3 approach instead, you can increase the weight you use to roughly 80 to 85% of your 1 rep max and still complete the same number of reps. By doing this, you'll have increased your total workload by a good amount. 3 sets of 10 with 70 pounds equals 2,100 pounds of work, whereas 10 sets of 3 with 85 pounds equals 2,550 pounds of work. It's well documented that more total volume within the right intensity parameters will mean more muscle, assuming you can recover from that volume, but the benefits don't stop there. Where the 10x3 rep scheme really shines is in its ability to develop strength, power, and technical proficiency. Because you'll be doing sets of 3 with a weight you could probably get for just about 5 reps, which is that 80 to 85% range, every single rep you do will be performed explosively and with perfect technique. It's also true that the more time you spend with higher percentages, the better you'll get at lifting heavy weight, and this is a great way to get that practice in. So with the intro out of the way, I've organized the rest of this video into 3 main categories: power development, common criticisms of the approach, and different uses for the 10x3 rep scheme. Let's start with power. Hands down, the main reason I like 10x3 is because it allows you to get a lot more out of the movements that you choose to have in your program. Even when pure muscle gain is the goal, I still don't include any movements in my routine unless I truly feel they're worth my time. With a 10x3 approach, you get a real chance to spend some time with an exercise. 10 sets means 10 first reps, 10 times getting set up, and because there are fewer reps per set, every single one of them is important. Compare that to a 3x10. Even if you perform an exercise twice a week, that's still only 6 sets, and most of the reps you do are going to be in anticipation of the last few. I think one of the most important things a lifter can do is to truly connect with the movements they perform. This may go beyond the scope of this video, but I believe that if you develop a true respect for the exercises you use in your program, your results will be better and your training will have more meaning and value to you. Now on to why this is so effective for becoming more powerful. While there is a typical percentage range usually used for power development, and it is much lower than 85%, intention still matters. If you perform your reps while just kind of going through the motions, your results won't be nearly as good as when you put everything you have into every single rep you do. Even if you can't move 85 pounds as fast as you can, say, 60 for example, the act of trying to move the weight fast will still improve your strength and power more than if you didn't have that intention. The problem with sets of 10 using this approach is twofold. First, that's a long time to mentally focus on putting everything into each rep, and your mind will have a tendency to drift. Second, it may actually be impossible for you to use max power output for a set of 10. Without going too much into the science, when you intentionally push as hard as you can, you'll be tapping into higher threshold parts of the muscle that don't actually have the ability to perform at that high level for a long time. Picture an Olympic lifter. There's no way they could perform a set of 10 with anywhere near the weight they could use for a set of 3. A lot of this has to do with the fact that the most powerful and explosive parts of the muscle would wear out long before the 10th rep, which means they need to rely more on the less powerful parts of the muscle, which means less weight and explosiveness. This leads to one of the most misunderstood aspects of the 10x3 rep scheme. If you're doing sets of 3 with a 5 rep max, your proximity to failure isn't as high as if you did a set of 10 with a 10 rep max, so the muscle gain should actually be lower, right? Well, not exactly. There is much more going on here than just surface level failure. Let's imagine for a moment that the higher threshold fibers, the ones you can activate right away with sets of 3 but might not tap into until rep 6 or 7 on a set of 10, are the fibers with the most potential for growth. If that's the case, and it is, it only makes sense that 10x3 works just as well, if not better, than 3x10 for muscle gain. If the point of a set of 10 is to pass a certain threshold near the end of the set, why not just skip the first 6 or 7 reps and get right to it with heavier sets of 3? It's like the old school bodybuilders would say, the set doesn't start until the muscles are already burning, or it's the last few reps that count. Okay, well, why not just do the last reps then? I should probably mention here that I do still think sets of 10 are worth doing. I know it probably sounds like I'm hating on the typical 3x10, but I'm not. I'm just trying to get you to understand why 10x3 works. In the perfect world, you would probably do a mix of both. Now, before we move on, I did have 2 more thoughts that I thought would probably be worth mentioning here. First, you'll often hear bodybuilders say that weight is irrelevant. Just use enough weight so you can feel the muscles working. Well, I tend to approach this from a different perspective. The weight is irrelevant because you can always move the weight faster. Of course, this statement must stay within reason, as neither viewpoint is saying to use 5-pound dumbbells for an overhead press or something, but if intentionally moving a weight faster lets you tap into higher threshold fibers, then up to a point, the weight itself really does become less important. Putting 100 pounds of force into a 60-pound barbell isn't exactly the same as putting 100 pounds of force into a 70-pound barbell, but they're a lot closer than you think. And finally, there's the potentiation effect. If you begin a workout with an explosive 10x3, even if the movement itself isn't inherently explosive, if you have that intention, your central nervous system will be primed for lifting for the rest of the session. Explosive lifting seems to wake up the nervous system, which means you may be able to get more out of your typical sets of 10 later in the workout. Now let's move on to a few common criticisms of using a 10x3 approach. The first and main argument being time. If 3x10 and 10x3 both provide similar gains in muscle and the 10x3 takes longer, why would you do a 10x3? Well, first I will say that 10 sets of 3 reps does take longer. Let's compare 2 different groupings of supersets. If you do a superset of 2 exercises with a 3x10 rep scheme and maintain a quick and steady pace, you will probably accumulate roughly 5 to 6 minutes of rest time. If you perform the same superset with 3x10, you will probably accumulate around 10 minutes of total rest time, and I'll show you how I got those numbers on the screen. This does mean your workouts will probably be a bit longer, but I think the trade-off is worth it. Even if both methods lead to the same muscle gain over the short term, if the 10x3 makes you stronger in the long run, it only makes sense that this will eventually lead to you using more weight on your sets of 10, which will mean more muscle. A lot more muscle? Maybe not, but enough to be worth it. And muscle growth aside, if it improves performance, that sounds like a win to me regardless. Another common criticism that often comes up is that because you're using more weight with a 10x3 versus a 3x10, the 10x3 will eventually lead to more joint wear and tear over the years, but in my opinion, this is just a bit short-sighted. Consider how much more likely you are to maintain perfect form on every rep when performing a set of 3 versus a set of 10. You will be so much more engaged when doing a set of 3, every rep is going to be perfect. You're also avoiding true failure, which means you won't be doing any grinders, which often leads to an extra reliance on structures you don't normally want involved. So even if heavier weights lead to more wear and tear, which I don't actually agree with, this will be offset by the fact that your form will be better. Now let's move on to a few circumstances where 10x3 might be for you, starting with exercise-specific examples. Besides the additional strength and performance benefits you get from a 10x3 approach I've already mentioned, Some movements just don't work well with high reps. Consider one of the best trap builders out there, the snatch grip high pull. Sets of 10 on a snatch grip high pull are very counterproductive in my opinion. The explosive and free form range of motion dictates that you hold yourself accountable on every rep. This is almost impossible with a set of 10. I guarantee by the 7th rep you won't be pulling the bar as high as you were on the first 6, which means you're not getting as much out of those final reps. 10x3 is perfect here because every single rep will be as good as you can make it. I believe that any exercise with an inherent explosive nature is better suited to high sets, low reps like 10x3. Next, we have the idea that not all people are the same. Any experienced coach will tell you that some people just do better with low reps. For whatever reason, lifters have a natural tendency towards different rep schemes. One guy might thrive on high rep sets but get buried and lose motivation with lower rep sets. The same is true in reverse for others. For some reason, I just like high sets, low reps, and enjoyment is always important. I can bang out 10x3 week after week and feel great where others won't. 10x3 is also great for strength guys who need more muscle. 10 sets of 3 reps will satisfy that need for heavier work while allowing for enough total volume to cause real size gains. There are also phase-specific examples where 10x3 might be better. I've noticed that mentally, when I'm cutting, doing sets of 3 just seems a lot more manageable. When I'm a month or two into a cut and lacking energy, doing a set of 10 plus just seems so daunting, but I can always push for a quick set of 3 and repeat it many times. This also might actually be better for cutting regardless, as the heavier weights used may help you hold on to more muscle. So if you're going through a period where your work capacity is lower, high sets, low reps might help. And finally, to end off the video, I want to talk about the fun aspect here. I have never found more enjoyment lifting than when doing an antagonistic superset of 2 exercises back-to-back non-stop with sets of 3. Let's say I choose a pen lay row and a floor press. I'll do those 3 reps of the row and go right into 3 reps on the floor press, then make a mark on my training log. Then I'll do it again and again, over and over. Something about this is so enjoyable. I'll even up the intensity sometimes and just go back and forth as many times as I can until I start missing reps. Here I'll either stop or start doing sets of 2 until I can, and so on. This feels a lot less like I'm just going through the motions and checking off a list of chores, and more like a game. How perfect can I make every rep? How explosive can I be? This round I'm gonna be better than the last. Maybe this won't be for you, but I love it. And with that, I think I've said just about everything I can on the 10x3, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, thanks for watching.